Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Albert Nguyen. He's the analytics capper. A little bit later, Joe Dellera will join us. This is your How to Bet NBA Summer League. This one's for the sickos. So Summer League is obviously a fun time. You get to see the rookies in action, guys on the edges of NBA rosters trying to cement their place to get an invite to training camp or get a full-time contract. We have seen players come out of Summer League before and actually make rosters. We've seen them be impact players before. It's billed as like where the stars of tomorrow are made, which is a little bit extreme, but it is definitely, I think it's a lot of fun to be there. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's a very distinctive style of basketball. And to talk about how to bet it with Vegas Summer League starting over the weekend, I want to bring in a couple of our great hosts that talk about these kind of things. So Albert, I'll start right here. If I'm somebody that has never bet NBA Summer League before, and I wish to God I was, but I'm not. If I'd never bet NBA Summer League before and I came to you and was like, hey, I'm going to Vegas, I want to bet on these games while I'm watching, where do I start? What to you is like the first thing that you want to talk about when we talk about how to bet Summer League?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a really hard one because Summer League is so hit or miss depending on the year, depending on who's playing. So my biggest advice is definitely not only checking out the rosters and see who the starters and the top draft picks are playing, but also wait. Wait until after they play a game and see what the minute distribution is, right? Just because you're the first pick or the fifth pick in the NBA draft doesn't mean you're going to get the majority of the minutes. Every player is at a different timeline in terms of their development, not only physically but also mentally within all the schemes and the playbook and all that with the team. So I would say wait. I would say wait, especially if you want action on that first game, which I mean, you're in Vegas. I get it. You want to throw some money down. Wait until the first half to see who's actually going to be playing and who you think is going to be closing the games.
So I think with Summer League, the key is timing, right? I think with a lot of NBA betting, timing is absolutely key. But in particular, Summer League. So there's a couple things that you want to make sure of. You want to know that the guys that you think are going to play are going to play. You want to be sure that they're going to play both halves. And they're like, you can follow Twitter and read various things and keep up to date on those type of things. Like those updates will be available. Then the next key there is you also need to not base it off of like what the last game was, because a lot of times what will happen is a player will play immediately for a team. He'll play one game and then it's like he is too good for Summer League. We are shutting him down. The rookies in particular, we're shutting him down. No way. Can't risk him getting hurt. They're out of here. The veterans even more so, because there are oftentimes, there's always like 1 to 2 guys that were kind of fringe rookies the first year, kind of got a little bit of playing time. They come into Summer League and are like, oh, they look like NBA players. They don't belong here. And quite honestly, there is a little bit of pressure from front offices to make sure that those guys don't play too much. So like Desmond Bane, his second season, he played I think 2 to 3 games because Memphis was like, we want you to deal with being the initial ball handler. Like we want you to learn how to do this. And to me, like that's like a big kind of starting place here for where to kind of look at is like, what are the priorities for this teams? Because in Bane's case, it was great to bet on Memphis because you had like a rotation caliber guy that was going to have the ball in his hands a lot. Sometimes it's like, we want you to get out there, get some running. We just want to see like, can you work on your defense? Can you work on these other things and kind of go off of that? These teams are never, ever, ever, ever like the organization is not pushing for them to win. Now, that group comes together and is very close knit because it's just them and one of the assistant coaches that's getting a shot to coach the summer league team. It's like it's not a promotion. It's more like an opportunity to kind of like see how you handle, how you handle managing a summer league because you handle practices and rotations and everything else. And some teams will take it seriously, but it is very important to kind of keep an eye on who is there to like get an objective done and who's like really kind of scouting out the talent. And you'll be able to kind of tell that by middle way. So you have to very early on, I think, know who's playing, focus on the talent, and then transition otherwise to those kind of opportunities. The other thing I think is really interesting is you will get these like Reese Shea is going to play Sar. And so you will get these kind of battles of like the top guys. Yeah. And that often creates a kind of a tense situation. And there's actually opportunities, I think, to bet on not who the best player is between them, but really look at those rosters, because it very rarely turns into these one-on-one battles that these things are kind of billed as out in Vegas.
Yeah, Matt, I have 2 points. First is I guess just an anecdote. One example on both extremes, right? One where I think it was 2018. I think Josh Hart was either second year or first year for the Lakers. I think his second year because first year was Lonzo, second year was Josh Hart. He won the Summer League MVP in 2018. If you guys remember that summer, LeBron was just signed, Magic Johnson was in the building, so you had like this huge, LA Lakers contingency in Vegas to watch Josh Hart perform. And you could tell he was trying. Like Josh Hart, you saw, in the playoffs here playing 48 minutes a night for the Knicks. He was doing the same thing in 2018 Summer League for the Lakers, and he won the Summer League MVP. On the other side, you take an example like a Jaden Hardy last year, who just finished his first year, going into his second year. He the Dallas Mavericks wanted him to be the focal point, the number one option in summer league, and he did that. He did that great for the first 2 or 3 games, and once he proved that, he barely played in games 4, right, 3 and 4. So, just like Matt is saying, just because you're playing a lot in games 1 and 2 doesn't mean you're going to play a lot in games 3 and 4. You just have to see some of those nuances. And another thing I want to point out is that first game, a second year player is so much more ahead than a rookie coming out of college. So that first game, if you want to see like an angle or maybe a betting perspective where you can back a second year veteran, I think those are good spots as well.
Yeah, especially like I said early on, you just got to be real cautious with, don't get suckered into like, oh man. So here's a good example: the Orlando Magic are sending Anthony Black to summer league. Like Black started a good chunk of
Yeah.
games last year at their two guard spot. If Anthony comes out and he has 30 in the first game, don't be like, ooh, I'm going to jump on this because Black had such a big game one. They will oftentimes be like, yeah, you're good. It's okay. One's enough, especially for the veteran guys. Now, sometimes it's usually like the first weekend because it's like you're going to be there anyway. They're not going to fly you out for just one game most often unless you get hurt. Now, any sort of injury, that's the other thing to keep in mind here. Any injury, they're not going to play you if you are a player that they have any investment in. If you are on contract on roster, they're not going to play you after the injury. It's just not worth it for them. Like Jet Howard, another guy on Orlando, if he gets banged up, not going to play. Now Howard may play multiple games, right? Because he didn't get almost any time last year. This is actually, I think, a really good example of a good summer league roster where you do have Black. You do have Charlie Brown, who's had a cup of coffee in the league. Oh brother, is actually on this team. Jarrett Culver had a cup of coffee. He's from Rio Grande. He's played in Rio Grande Valley last year in the G League, so he's on there. Theo Maladon, remember that name? So like
Yep.
Orlando has put guys around Tristan Da Silva, the rookie, obviously.
That's
That
a good team.
yeah, they've actually put together like a squad here. Now Magic or Black and Huff may be done by the first weekend, but even then, like there's a little bit of depth there. So like, they're a good team and maybe play because you can bet summer league futures. I'm not suggesting you should do so because even I have limits to sickodom, but if you're gonna bet, that one's maybe like a little bit better versus some of these other rosters, which you will find kind of some limitations in what they put together. There are also teams that definitely put a little bit more into their summer league rosters every year. Miami actually, because their development program is so strong between Sioux Falls, the Heat, their development program, like they take this pretty seriously. Miami
Yep.
does not put out rosters that are just there, just like contractually obligated. Miami sends teams that they actually want to evaluate guys because they believe in finding diamonds in the rough. So Miami's always a pretty good bet. You should probably bump them up in your summer league power ratings a little bit just to see kind of where they're at. But like I said, in general, there's kind of these kind of opportunities to get in there. It's going to be tempting to kind of look at this because some of these lines will be way off. Like you'll see lines the night before and be like, that doesn't make any sense. Like that team's, I just saw that team. Like they're really good. As tempting as it is to get that CLV in summer league, like we always preach those things, it's better just to wait. Just wait and keep your phone on you and keep up to date with news, and you'll get like a little bit of a better opportunity. Before we get you out of here, AC, any sort of like last minute things that you want to add on here about summer league and how to look at these games and how to bet them?
Sure. I mean, if when it comes to betting, and it doesn't matter what sport you're betting, it could be NBA Summer League, it could be the NBA Finals. You do know when there's more eyeballs on it, when there's more money and bets involved, the numbers are going to be a lot sharper. So when you're looking at the NBA Finals versus the NBA Summer League, where there's going to be less action, you might be able to find a lot of softer lines and find a lot of action or a lot of angles in that perspective. But definitely be cautious, because at the end of the day, I still think the best play into these summer league games are going to be second half looks. So if you're either at the games watching or you're watching on TV, definitely pay attention to the minute distribution, and then see if you can extrapolate that into the second half. That's my only advice. Have fun. It's just a summer league. It's not the real season. But yeah.
That's Albert Nguyen, the Analytics Capper. You can find him on Twitter and the Action Network app at Analytics Capper. Up next, we'll talk to Joe Dellera about betting Summer League. Joining me now, king of the escalator, king of the ladder, Joe Dellera, who just got done doing his deck.
It's something, man.
in the summer heat. Joe Dellera, you can catch him in the Action Network app and on Twitter at Joe Dellera. You can also catch the Cash That podcast, which he always has a lot of our Action Network folks pop on there from time to time. So you should definitely check that out as well. All right, Joe. So I talked with Albert about kind of betting game to game, about tracking timelines for making sure that you're up to date on the news. Don't assume that if a second year player played last night, he's going to play in the next game because they may just shut him down, etc. But you're so great at prop betting. I want to kind of ask you this. What are the things that you look for to find edges when you're looking at prop betting in Summer League?
So one of the things about Summer League is it's really the time for the guards to shine. And one of the things like we talk about with Summer League is that, obviously everybody has like limited experience, but the guards, they get the ball first. Like the ball's getting inbounded to them. They're getting the opportunity initially to initiate offense. And everybody's trying to make a roster. So the best way to make a roster is to score the basketball. The assists kind of pop for like some guys, but not too many. For the most part, the players, they want to get the ball, they want to get to the rack, and they want to score. So it's a little bit tougher for big men to really make, I think, like their stamp, especially from like a points prop perspective. I think if you're going to look for a big man, maybe like a rebounds prop is a better angle. But for the guards, if they had turnovers, I'd love to bet them, but they don't. But I think that one of the best ways to attack this is if you like strong guard play, and that's what you can look for through some of these rosters, and tackle like some over on their points props or over on their threes, as they're going to get a lot more opportunity because they just naturally have the ball in their hands more.
The biggest problem with kind of analyzing Summer League is that there's no organization. And the reason there's no organization is because there's no time.
Yep.
These guys will basically agree to Summer League contracts after the draft. Between the draft, they'll have guys that they've started contacting throughout the month of June. But after the draft, they'll really kind of be like, all right, let's get together a Summer League. They'll call the people that they've had on their radar. They'll put together like, hey, can you come in for Summer League? They'll fly them in. They will have a week of practice, which is this week. And then they'll fly to Vegas and they'll play. And they'll do... If they have 2 days off, they'll do one practice in between. It's 4 practices, though, before you start playing games. And if you're a team that doesn't have anybody that's like been together, there's no way for you to really know how to play together. That's why it's so guard dominant. It's just much easier for it to be like, all right, the guard's going to dictate everything. He'll call for a screen every now and again. But the guards, it's actually, to me, pretty frustrating in that the guards, I'm always like, guys, if you just show that you can defend and actually run an offense, you're going to actually get a lot better chance. Like, it's just very rare that they're going to be like, ooh, he had 30 points in Summer League. Got to sign that guy. That's
Nobody
not
cares.
the best way for you to have, especially if it's like, ooh, he had 30 on 28 shots. No, don't. That's not going to get you there. There have been guys along the way that if you're a crack shooter and you just are able to like spot up nowhere to find the ball, that can get you help.
Yeah.
And if you're a big guy that shows that you can actually rebound and compete with physicality, like if you dominate physically, I think bigs in the rebounding department can do a lot of damage in terms, or a lot of help to themselves for a career or opportunities just by being kind of active in those kind of settings. Now, sometimes the minutes will kind of fluctuate rapidly in case they're like, okay, this game we're going to play this guy a lot, and then the next game we're going to not play that guy a lot. How do you kind of balance that? What's the best way to kind of keep an eye on that and try and predict that unsteadiness?
That is definitely, I think, one of the toughest things. I think that getting the like second year and premier rookies, or so to speak, early, that's like they're gonna play earlier for these teams. Like a lot of times, like we've seen players hit summer league and then they just they graduate, and like they'll play a game or two games and you're like, nope, this guy's way too good, we don't need to see any more of him, and teams shut them down. And knowing that and kind of looking at that, you can say like, all right, like maybe they're going to go a little bit deeper down the roster. Maybe they're going to go a little bit deeper down who they brought to summer league and see like, can this guy make a roster spot? Can this guy get a two-way contract? So those are a couple of things that I'm looking for. But guys that have been around, I usually am looking for early, and those premier rookies I'm looking for early. So, like if you're looking at, say like the Memphis Grizzlies, for example, we're seeing a lot more of them because they play in like other summer leagues besides just Vegas. So like we've seen Zach Edey dominate already. I question whether or not he's going to play like all the way through summer league or not. I know he's not a guard, but I question whether they're going to play him all the way through summer league, or if they're going to say like, you know what, you're doing exactly what we thought you were going to do. We don't need to see any more. We don't need you to get hurt. We like what we're seeing here. We're going to shut you down.
I haven't done the work on this, but I do kind of wonder if there might be a little bit of an edge to finding the teams that played in the California Classic or in or in the Utah Summer League, just because those teams will have actually played a little bit more together. So I'm going to be kind of curious to do the work on that.
I think it cuts both ways, because I think that they might be better like initially in game one, like the Sixers, for example. Sixers have looked pretty good. The Warriors have looked pretty good. Like the Sixers, they've got McCain's looked great. And he's looked excellent, like in a couple games that he's played. He's a guy where if they were only playing in Vegas, you'd say like, all right, this is a great opportunity for a team that's going to contend for a title. He's probably not going to get as many like regular season minutes. Let's try to get him as many minutes now to get him game time, get him acclimated. We can get more film on him, see the things that maybe we need to work on with him. But because they're playing in Salt Lake as well, then it's like, oh, like, is he going to play the whole way through Vegas? He might be too good. Maybe we won't see too much of him. And then that hurts Philly, who's like 12-1 to win the summer league, because like you're taking some of their better players off the court.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some futures, because you kind of mentioned some of these teams that are really good. There is a market out there with the Warriors favored at plus 500 to win Vegas Summer League, Jazz plus 700. If you're unfamiliar with Summer League, they play a normal schedule for the first week, and then they have basically a tournament that is great for the fans. And oh God, do the executives hate it, because they just want to they just want to leave. And they don't want to play through extra games. There's a lot of rooting against your team when it gets to be that late, because everybody's ready to get the hell out of Vegas. Jazz 7-1, Grizzlies 8-1 with Zach Edey leading the way. The Timberwolves 10-1, the Rockets 12-1, Sixers, as you mentioned, 12-1, Hornets 15-1, Cavs 15-1, and my pick, the Orlando Magic 15-1. Is there a team in there or some value that you think you can find? What's your approach to responsibly betting NBA Summer League futures?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I'm not allocating a ton of units to this. Like maybe like 2 units. I'm spreading it around, something like that. Like I'm having some fun. We made a lot of money this season. We have some bankroll to work with here. My initial thought, like when I looked at the rosters, I was like, I really like Utah, actually. Like I liked what they were bringing to the table. They have a lot of players playing. I was surprised, like Keontae George is on the roster, Taylor Hendricks is on the roster, Walker Kessler is on the roster, like weird. So like they had a lot of guys that have been in the NBA, obviously, Bryce Sensabaugh as well, and then they have a ton of like younger talent. Like they have Armando Bacot, they have Kyle Filipowski, they have Isaiah Collier. So they have a lot of, and they have Kenneth Lofton still. So they have a lot of talent there. My concern is that some of those guys that played in Salt Lake, they're playing in Salt Lake right now because it's like home for the Jazz. So I'm wondering if they're playing there and then they're not going to play in Vegas is just kind of like a fan morale type of thing. Like, let's get fans in the building. They can see our guys. They can see some NBA talent. So they were a team that kind of stood out to me. But even then, I think that they have some more talent like down the roster. Like Filipowski, people thought was going to be a first-round draft pick and then was not. But you guys saw him dominate in college with North Carolina. Carolina. So I do think that there's a lot of talent there. And even like Isaiah Collier, he was excellent in college. He kind of fell in terms of like his draft prospect, but he's a guy that can get the ball in his hands and get to the rack. So there's a couple guys like that. And obviously Cody Williams from Colorado, excellent small forward. I think it's Dubs, J-Dub's brother, I think, right? So they do have a lot of talent there. I thought the 7-1 was interesting to me. But like, it's a lot of times it's teams, it's odd. It's not always the really bad teams that are good in summer league. Sometimes it's good teams that have like solid benches that are trying to figure out like who the like 9th, 10th, 11th guys on the roster are. And it's really interesting to see like who these teams bring out. Like the Oklahoma City Thunder are 30-1. They have so many dudes on the team. It's like these guys have to play well because there's going to be so many of them that are going to get cut just because they don't have the ability to retain all of these players. But then also they're playing really hard because they want to be. You probably want to be on the Thunder. Like this is going to be a contending team. Like maybe you get a chance to get a ring as like a rookie, as a guy deep on the bench. So Oklahoma City is a team at 30-1. I think that's just a long number. You know that they're going to be well coached. You know that they draft really well. They have so much talent. I could see Oklahoma City playing well, even though they're playing in multiple summer leagues. So I think at 30-1, that number is probably a little bit long for me. I think I'd sprinkle them up just a bit.
Miami's another one of those. The other one,
Yeah.
they don't really have the roster this year, but again, by the end of it, there's nobody really left of the key guys.
Yes.
But another one is Portland. Portland's always hanging around the tournament every year. So, yeah. By the way, that would include. There have been. By the way, I was there for Nate Robinson getting his summer league jersey retired, which was a
hilarious. Incredible
so
moment. Funny for so many reasons.
I have a lot of stories of Blazer related stories too from summer league. To boot. All right, that's gonna do it for your How to Bet Summer League. Make sure to check out Joe Dellera in the Action Network app because he'll be tracking picks. He will be betting Summer League every day, along with all sorts of international basketball as well. Make sure to check that out. We'll be back next week with more episodes. We're going to talk about win totals. We'll react to those when those go up, hopefully over the weekend. And we'll get to some other topics for the off season. Keep it right here on Buckets. Till we see you guys again next time. Let's get buckets.